Welcome, Solarah here. I hope you guys are doing well. I am here to do possibly a reading and to also share some more of those downloads I've been mentioning I was going to come on here and do. I hope you're doing well. It is Saturday, April the 20th, 4:20, as I record this. I hope you guys are doing well today. Today is the day of the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction, and the sun has just moved tropically into Taurus. So we've got a lot of energy going on right now, a lot of things going on in the sign that have to do with that energy, the Taurus energy. And it's the first time that the sun has been back in Taurus since the nodes left. The North Node left Taurus and the South Node left Scorpio last summer. So whatever was accomplished through the time where the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio, we're really going to begin to feel those shifts more magnanimously as the sun sets forth now in Taurus to bring about a lot of the changes that the prior nodal positions facilitated. So a lot going on today. I've written about that on my Substack for today's Weekend Alchemy that I also will be posting. I haven't done it yet. I've recorded and written it, but I will be posting it also on my other YouTube channel, the Weekend Alchemy message surrounding this Taurus conjunction and the sun moving into Taurus and what it means for us at this phase of ascension. So I hope you're doing well. I want to welcome you here. Welcome if you're visiting for the first time. Welcome if you're a returning subscriber or follower, or you just engage with my content. Thank you for being here. I want to also extend some words of gratitude to those of you who have been donating to the channel. Thank you so much. Thank you to those of you who have even been, uploading the egg cleansing magic manual and the Tarotstrology report that I gifted to the collective. Thank you to those of you who've been choosing to make donations. That's very kind of you. I really do appreciate it. Quick announcement. Tomorrow, Sunday, the 21st of April, I have my monthly group Q&A with my Substack crew. So for those of you on Substack who are my monthly and annual patrons, you will be receiving the link sometime today for tomorrow's meetup. So I look forward to hopefully seeing a few new faces and maybe some returning ones. It's always a wonderful time to meet up with you guys. And I have 2 more events happening in the month of April. I have my small group sessions that is occurring. It's occurring a week from today, so Saturday the 27th. That's my Road Back to Wholeness small group session. There are still some tickets available for that. I will leave the link in the description box in the comment section below. As well as next Sunday, I'm getting together to do another Tarotstrology group Q&A. So this is a session in which you can come and we can talk about I will channel one placement in your chart, and this month we're focusing on Mars. So I will be talking about the significance of what Mars is actually doing through ascension and its relevance in your chart, your Mars position very specifically. So I will be channeling for every person who shows up that placement in their chart in accordance with, if you're not familiar, when I do Tarotstrology, it's about channeling who you are cosmologically, your galactic identity and your soul's purpose and the resources you carry and all the story behind your being here. So next week, if you would like to get together for the Tarotstrology group Q&A, where we will venture into the power of Mars in your chart and what that means for you as an interdimensional being, a multifaceted being, then please avail yourself of the tickets that are still available. And of course, again, I will put that information in the description box and comment section below. I have quite a few downloads here again, and I'm trying to decide where to begin. Yes, let me just see where I want to start. Okay, so this is one message that's a part of a chain of messages. And oh, before I get into this, I do want to say this is a separate message from what it is I'm about to get into, and it might not be in the end. Everything might be interconnected. I was getting ready just now to do this, and I was checking on a candle I had going, and I like to read the energies of what's happening as candles burn. I use them to clear things, to connect with things, etc. But I also discern what's happening through the working by reading the candle, reading the wick, seeing how ash is forming. There's a whole bunch of ways you can intuit information. And I was very led to this particular candle, and I noticed that there were two things that were burning, and they kind of looked like butterfly wings or even kidneys, and I was intrigued by that. There's some kind of clearing of the fear templates that kept us from connecting with our ability to fly. Now, you can take that however you want to take it. If you are a being who knows you can fly, okay, well, maybe that's what's being destroyed in your own energy field, is whatever blocked you from doing that. But you can also look at it a little bit less literally and think of it in terms of, the figurative definition of flying, which is just the ability to soar, the ability to be who you are, the ability to take off. This week has felt very, very tiring. It's felt like it's been a real week of integration, and the integration is always a preparation for something that is anchoring to bring in a material shift. So I feel like the message I was getting through that, not for nothing, the kidneys are where we store our emotions surrounding fear. So that's the message I was getting. Something about the destruction of fear templates that have kept you from flying. Okay, so that's one message. Okay, so now I'll get into the downloads I actually wrote. So everything is being kicked out of where it doesn't belong and restored to its rightful place. I'm going to say that again. Everything is being kicked out of where it doesn't belong and restored to its rightful place. Okay, so you could say that this is very much an energy that the recent eclipse portal has been supporting, and I wrote that around the time of the eclipse, but now I'm beginning to see even more through this Taurus energy that's occurring with the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction today, how much more it's being cemented. And this is what I was actually writing about in this weekend's Weekend Alchemy. So what seems to be occurring right now is that Taurus is the energy that connects us to the fullness of our energy bodies and our true, what I like to call our true divine net worth. Okay, and so what it feels like is happening is the true order of the earth, how it was originally established before the false matrix rooted itself into this realm and reality and got us all stuck in these trauma loops and karmic cycles where we were constantly going around living the same energy, just different scenery, and none the wiser because we couldn't cosmically connect with everything that allows for us to really hone in on who we are. So we were very limited energetically speaking because of the fuckery and the way that the false matrix was set up. It feels like we're returning to the original order that was here before that the false matrix became implemented. And so I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. Once upon a time, our earth did not need policing because everything was measured, separated, and brought together by way of frequency. Okay, so the false matrix took the frequency barriers and caused us to turn them against self by not being fully aware of how we are electromagnetic beings, and that our emotions and our thoughts are creating the energy of our environment, right? So that's on a simple level. So for example, if you walk into a room with two people, a couple, and they've been arguing and they're pretending like everything's okay, you feel it. You feel it because you feel the emotional charge in the air that's telling you that something wasn't right or that you stepped into an argument, because you're able to pick up the true frequency beneath their words, right? Everything is connected and also divided by frequency. The way we experience it here oftentimes is like when we're uncomfortable, you know, then you tend to, you probably are in the wrong frequency, and that doesn't mean that you have to, sometimes the discomfort is there because we need to adjust our frequency, we're out of order, or it's because something is entering into our reality that is frequentially out of alignment. And at every turn, we get the opportunity to test our emotions against, you know, to see where we are with an external energy, whether it's a person, a situation. Our emotions are what tell us whether we're frequentially in alignment or not. And then we get to make the decision whether we want to shift our frequency to accommodate and to come into alignment with that energy, or whether we want to move away because it's not worth it to us to shift, okay? But when we are in alignment frequentially, we are comfortable. We are able, in other words, to sustain our home frequency, is what you could say, okay? So once upon a time, that meant that beings who were of a lower frequential consciousness or lower, you know, lower vibrational consciousness, they were not allowed past certain barriers. Now, this isn't like a discrimination, I'm sitting at this table and you can't sit with me kind of energy. Not at all. It's just that we all have the ability to evolve and to move up. Like cosmologically speaking, universally speaking, there's nothing that stops any of us from ascending and moving higher up in our divine truth except for our own choices. So everything has been determined by our own free will. So if a being is of a lower consciousness, they're able to climb up, but they must do it the right way. They must align with the soul lessons that allow them to be in a higher frequential reality, and to not be able to dwell there if they can't hold the frequency that's necessary for them to be there. And that in and of itself is a protection. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the state of what we've been dismantling in the false matrix over the past couple of years, we've been dealing with like waking up and recognizing how much of what we thought was our reality was actually a lot of other consciousnesses that were had their hands in the pot. Whether you're dealing with the programming, the socializing, the socialization of programming, or whether you're dealing with the actual spells and attacks. It's all the same. And then there are all these energies and entities that are connected to these things, right? And the truth of the matter is those entities, even the ones that are low vibrational, that other beings try to send towards us or utilize for their own, you know, personal ill-gotten gain most of the time, even though they can be utilized for that kind of energy, they're not in the right realm. They've been called into a place where they don't frequentially belong, and in order for them to stay here, there had to be a constant balancing of energy, which allowed for them to be in the wrong place. And when I say balancing, I'm not talking about balancing of energy in terms of making it right, but I am talking about all the ways the false matrix did other things, like creating loopholes, you know, messing around with portals, locking down portals that were supposed to be open, opening up wormholes, and most importantly of all, the sacrifice system, the sacrificing of the innocent that freed up a lot of very potent energy they needed in order to keep these lower levels of consciousness in a place they didn't belong. Okay, so through the false matrix, the way they were able to sustain it was sustain their craziness was through a lot of like credit, debit, checks and balances systems that they were able to offset through other through sacrifice, right? Which is why all of these big industries have a big like sacrifice history, yeah, especially the higher up you go. And so so what we're dealing with now is the return of the barriers that are necessary so that everything, everyone can be within the right frequency pocket. It's kind of like the right energetic neighborhood. And there are beings who, the higher up you move in frequency by mastering your own soul, because you're just moving back up until you just come into full reunion again with Source, right? The higher up you go, you have access to all of the dimensions and layers that are a lower frequency. So in this way, this is how many high frequency beings at the previous golden age actually got stuck in a dimension that that while they can visit it, it's not in alignment with their frequential truth, if that makes sense. So the higher frequency you're able to hold, the more you're able to like access all areas, okay? So for as long as you're able to hold the frequency that a space or a place requires, you're able to be there. And it goes beyond place. It's also the bandwidth you hold that allows you to have certain things or access. This was how we maneuvered ourselves through the earth, and it was fair. And not just the earth, it's not just an earth thing, but let's just say the earth for now. This is how we maintained a level of fairness, right? So everything is available for everyone, but not everyone is eligible until they've accomplished the soul lesson. But there was no gateway. There was no gatekeeping in that regard. I mean, everyone and anyone knows how to climb. It's not a secret. Okay, so that's the message that was coming through. Everything is being kicked out of where it doesn't belong and restored to its rightful place. And a practical way you might even be experiencing this also is that people, let's use the example of people who are not supposed to be in your energy, that try to push or manipulate or gaslight or mask their way into it, that external facade that you might have been fooled by before, it's falling very quickly, even if it's even allowed in your energy at this point. For some of you, it's not even like it doesn't even enter into your energy. But for those of you who are still dealing with this, as we continue to purge the things outside of our own energy fields that supported those external intrusions, you might notice that people unmask themselves more easily. You might find that being around certain beings is becoming more exhausting and tedious at times. You might have to recover more in hermit mode when it comes to dealing with certain beings. This is all showing you where your energy is fighting. You know, it's fighting to either maintain or to get away, or to break out of altogether. But it's also showing you where there's a frequential misalignment, which is why your energy is fighting. It's at odds with something else, because that frequential misalignment, it's time for us to feel it more succinctly, because as we feel it more succinctly, we calibrate ourselves deeper into our truth, deeper into our own power. And it's that action of rooting more into our power and not like rejecting ourselves, betraying ourselves, questioning or doubting ourselves. It's becoming more and more confident and rooted in our power that is actually opening the door for these energies now to fall away entirely, because that's what we're moving up towards. This is what this is talking about. Everything is being kicked out of where it doesn't belong and restored to its rightful place. The more we stand our ground in our frequency, the more we're reestablishing the true frequential barriers around us that don't support energies, entities, beings, situations, circumstances coming into our fields or coming into our reality that don't match our true frequency. So in other words, we're re-establishing the barriers and the boundaries that allow for everything to be where it is supposed to be in terms of the frequency it holds. We're doing that by rooting in ourselves, because when we root in ourselves, we are once again making contact with our home frequency. And when we're in our home frequency, everything that is a foreign entity that doesn't belong, I talked about this last time, it can't even come towards you at a certain point, because your electromagnetic field is restored to its rightful settings, where it will repel and repulse and renounce those energies that seek to try to come towards you that aren't a frequential match. Okay, so what is happening right now, what it feels like, is that those energies are still wanting to come. Of course they are, because what we're dealing with right now, and this is what I was writing about in today's week in alchemy, what we're dealing with now is a complete kicking out of the old world and the old earth, and the complete rooting in. So those energies are still trying to hold on, but they don't have a grip on you anymore, and they don't have they're so much more obvious, which is good. But ultimately what we are going to get to is where they're not even they can't even come near you anymore. Okay, so that's what you're working towards, and it's going to be based upon the frequential shift that occurs when you are established in your home frequency. In your home frequency, your electromagnetic field is magnetizing things that are a frequential match and repelling, repulsing, renouncing all those energies that aren't a frequential match, to the point where they can't even come into your reality. Your energy field repels them. They don't come into your material reality, if that makes sense. A lot of the time, things occur in our material reality in order for us to see where we are in our own energy. So by the time something undesirable has manifested in our material reality, it's because we've been ignoring the messages we were getting on all the previous planes. So we were maybe ignoring our intuition, ignoring the thoughts that aligned us with the truth, ignoring the spiritual patterns and stories. Before something materializes, it has to have consent through those other planes also. So by the time something materializes that we don't want, or we don't like, or we're not happy with our own creation, as exhibited by it being in our fields materially, it is because we ignored, misinterpreted, or didn't fully connect to all the messages on the previous planes that were showing us what was coming forth. What was coming forth if we continued building on that energy. So that's one message that's coming through. Another one that was coming through very strongly, and this one came through like a week ago, and then a few days ago, I didn't realize the same message. I was channeling the same message, which means I need to get it out. So it's what I heard was, they think you're backed in the same corner with them, or as they are, but there's an exchange taking place. And I touched on this briefly, not in the last reading, but I think the reading before, where whenever a cycle is closing, cycles work cyclically. They work like a circle. So the inception point of an energy is also the exit point of the energy. So think about the Ouroboros, right? Or even think about how the hands on a clockwork, right? So every time you get to the 12 position with the big hand, you're moving 1 hour forward, right? With the little hand, you're moving into the next cycle of time. But in order to get to that next hour, to the next minute, to the next second, one hand always has to reach the 12. That is the inception point, and that is the exit point of the cycle. The cycle enters through the 12, the o'clock, and it leaves through the o'clock. Right? So it's the same thing with energy and breaking out of cycles. You're breaking out of rings, right? You're breaking out of rings of time. You're breaking out of a cycle, of a circle. So the same way an energy or a cycle enters is the same way the cycle will leave, meaning that a lot of the same themes that open the cycle up will return. And they'll return for a few reasons. For one thing, if you're conscious and you're conscientious that this is how and why cycles work, it's so that you can see that it's time for the cycle to leave, and you can assist the closing out of the cycle by consciously making decisions that are different than the ones that brought you into the cycle or sustained the cycle to begin with. Okay, that's one thing. A cycle that's about to repeat itself will always reveal that to us, even if we're not consciously aware, meaning that before we began to wake up and realize that we were going through life in patterns and cycles, we were just going on about our business, not recognizing that some things that are happening similarly are cycles returning, or even things like deja vu. Those are things that can indicate that there's a shift in a timeline occurring, or that a cycle is coming to a close. So I say this because for some of you, the way that a very, very gnarly karmic story, that if this is your reading, for most of you, this will go back all the way to the previous golden age. In fact, it will be part of the scenario and the story that caused you to possibly betray yourself to begin with, based upon the trust you put in another. So this is to do with those relationships and those decisions that caused you to betray yourself, let your guard down, open yourself up, open the earth up to what allowed for the false matrix to have its inception point. These are the stories, these are the characters, these are the cycles that must come to an end, because for many of you, you've been stuck in a story or in a loop, in a repeating conflict with this cycle, beings, circumstances, take it as it resonates for you, throughout this, since the previous golden age all the way up to now. So in other words, you've been reliving this theme that entered at the close of the previous golden age. You've been reliving it with certain beings, or you've been reliving it with certain entities or energies, or even themes have been repeating themselves, and it's time to close that out completely. It's time for the inception point energy to now exit. It's a grand cycle. We've reached the same place where the original energy entered, and so it's time for it to exit based upon your decision and how you choose to navigate what is occurring right now. So what that will often look like, or how it is that I'm being shown, is that similar situations. So for example, if you're dealing with beings from the previous golden age, that you have this entangled history together throughout the false matrix. It's kept you cycling through the same themes, stories with these beings, and now it's time to come to an end, because it's time for everyone to find their frequential place and alignment, and their home frequency, and the beings that are in alignment with that. If that's your situation, then what might be occurring for you and those beings is that there are very similar stories that are playing out in both your realities, and you might even be interconnected in that story. Meaning that there's something that has played itself out before with you, with these beings, especially in this lifetime, right? You've seen this energy play out before, but you weren't aware when it played out before that it was giving you a choice as to how you were going to play the energy. And so maybe you just unconsciously followed your programming and inadvertently ended up back in a cycle. And now you're getting to a place where you know all of these things. Like I said before, you can tell when something's on a frequential match. So if something's coming back around that feels familiar, that makes you want to feel like, oh shit, I did something and now I'm entering back into the same reality. This is where you actually opt out of that. But you must still ride the energy until you get to that point of exit. Meaning that there are things through the riding it to the point of the exit that you need to get back. I feel like I'm not explaining this very well. So for some of you, the reason why you weren't able to close this cycle before is not because you stuck around in it, but because you walked away from it before you got to the exit point, hence not facilitating the proper exchange that had to occur energetically. What do I mean by the proper exchange? Well, whenever there is an energy between beings that have had a karmic cycle where there has been, especially where there's been harvesting and siphoning, and they've taken things from you across lifetimes that wasn't theirs to take, and they haven't made amends for it. And it doesn't have to be monetary. Most of the time it's not. It can be stealing your joy, your vitality, doing spells to steal your health and your money. It really doesn't matter what it is. It's still putting you on the sacrifice block in order to get something by doing that to you. Okay? If that has been a recurring thing that has happened through many incarnations and even this lifetime with you and those beings, then when they come back into your energy, when it's time to close down a cycle, then they're coming back for as long as you're holding your ground and you're rooting yourself deeper into your home frequency. They are returning to energetically compensate that which they must return to you. And you to them also. It goes both ways, right? So the exchange of energy will often occur by bringing things into a similar energetic experience. That's where the exchange can occur. So in other words, if you feel like you're being backed in the same corner that some of these beings are being backed into, you are, but it's for a different reason. Okay? And so I want to talk about this on a collective level, because this is happening to many of you personally, because it's reflecting what is occurring collectively on our earth at this time. So right now, like I spoke about this at the beginning of the year, about how there are two worlds that are becoming more and more separate. And when I'm talking about two worlds, I'm talking about frequency. I'm talking about two different worlds that are rooted in different frequencies. And they're rooted in different frequencies because they are polar opposites. So on the one hand, you have beings who have been waking up and are rising into the age of Aquarius and are taking back their power and their own right to be authentically who they are. And some of these beings wouldn't even categorize themselves as being on a spiritual journey. It's just what they're feeling aligned to, and they're following that, even if they don't consider it truly a spiritual walk, although it is, And then you have some of us who are deeply spiritual and conscious of the fact that our affinity to rise into our power has everything to do with ascension, etc. We know this, right? And then you have beings who are so stuck in the old world, and these are the ones who tend to be those who have not mastered their own souls and reached higher levels of consciousness, because they either have become so comfortable giving away their power to the false matrix system, and they've bought the lie that therefore because they gave away their power that they're powerless, and so they're the ones that are easily fed upon. Or on the opposite side, they are the ones who have been scavenging and being the predators and eating of other beings' energy in order to get ahead. And because that's worked for them in the past, they don't realize that we're living in a different world. And that world that promoted that kind of behavior is shifting into a different reality. And because their own consciousness, their own frequency still wants to align with that, that's where they're going to be. And since there are beings who still want to be fed upon and don't want to rise into their power, that's where they're going to be also. But then there's another end of the polarity where there are a lot of beings who are rising up into their truth and their power, and they are creating a new frequency on the earth. And as such, these two polar opposite energies have been moving farther and farther apart, to the point where my guys were showing it to me like when a cell divides and there's like fission, and it becomes like an 8, and we're in the year 8, like an infinity symbol, until it breaks apart and there are two separate cells or two separate energies or entities. Energetically, this is what is occurring. But because we are all being pulled through the process of the fission process, everyone's feeling the tightness of it right now. And in the way it presents itself materially, it can look like what is occurring to some beings who are choosing the old world. It can look very similar to what's occurring to other beings that are choosing the new earth also, but that's because everyone's being pulled back into a position. This is Sagittarius energy, and Sagittarius season and Gemini season, the full moon in Sagittarius, are going to be important energies for setting this up too. The Sagittarius energy is the energy of the archer that likes to pull you back in order to redirect you into the right place. And that's what's happening right now. In other words, many of us are being pulled back into the same corner, and it feels like we're all struggling and suffering, and therefore we're going into the same direction, but we're not. We're all being set up, being pulled back, being given the resistance we need in order to really tune in and choose what it is we're going to do moving forward. Because if there's any energy that can, excuse me, make us really begin to question what direction and path we want to take based upon our past decisions, it's when we're backed in a corner, right? And some people choose to apply the same formula that rode them out before until they found themselves in the same corner. They're not seeing the pattern of it. They're not seeing how the formula that seemed to elevate them is also the formula that got them stuck in the corner, right? So they will repeat that, thinking that it's going to be their liberation, right? But this is the wrong time to be doing that, because the decisions we make right now in terms of how we choose to either elevate out of a cycle or go back into it, they are decisions that are going to determine kind of what world we're choosing to be in, because we are reconnecting with, well, we're not reconnecting, because the truth of the matter is that the old world was also sustained frequentially, even though it was unconscious, meaning that the reason why things were so shit and unfair and unequal was because we were living frequentially so out of alignment that this is what our energy field was creating on the earth too. So it's always been a frequency game. But now we are returning to the gnosis and the wisdom of that, so that we can properly utilize our true electromagnetic settings to create realities that are a match for our worth and our value. Whew. Okay. So what I have here is that if this is your message, like you're being pulled into a corner, it's because there's a closing down of a very gnarly karmic story that has spanned the ages. So for many of you, it goes all the way back to the previous golden age. This is why 2024 is the year of revisiting the inception point of what destroyed the previous golden age and allowed the false matrix to begin its reign of terror over the planet. Okay, so 2024 is about returning to that inception point, returning to the themes that entered at that time, returning to the root and the seed of what allowed for certain cycles to continue repeating themselves in your reality throughout incarnations for as long as the false matrix was alive. It's time to deal with those things. We get brought back to the inception point to decide, are you going to move into another cycle, or are you comfortable being in this, right? And that's the case with all cycles. We have the choice to stay in things because we're comfortable with them, you know, and that's what we do. You know, we can stay if we are in a you know, in a relationship with someone and a cycle for us is ending. We also get a choice. Are we going to like repeat something, or are we going to, you know, shift the energy? And sometimes we get comfortable being in a certain cycle, and there's nothing wrong with that if that cycle is in attunement with your frequency and you want to stay there for a while and you're with another being. That's a beautiful thing, you know. So the cycles, the breaking out of them, the elevating, the staying in them, this is all an energetic game. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just a free will choice that you have so that you're able to choose how it is you want to experience yourself, you know. So you're seemingly being pulled back into the same corner or situation right now, but you're being positioned for maximum lift-off potential. I'm going to say it again. You're seemingly being pulled back into the same corner or situation right now, but you're being positioned for maximum lift-off potential. When the energy shifts, you will both be catapulted into different worlds. That's what was coming through. So when the energy shifts, meaning when you've been pulled back all the way into that place of resistance and you've made a decision, and then the energy comes in and shifts, and there are several different ways the energy is going to be shifting moving forward, right? So this full moon in Scorpio is a big shift, right? Taurus season is coming with many shifts. The end of Mercury retrograde is going to bring about shifts. When the other planets decide to begin their retrograde season, it's going to bring in shifts. There's a lot of things that are planetarily supporting our ability to shift. And so whenever that shift comes in for you, because you've made that decision and you're more rooted in your home frequency, and now it's time for that thing to ping out of your existence, that's what's going to happen. So when the energy shifts, although you're both being pulled back right now, you both will be catapulted into the reality that your own consciousnesses have chosen based upon the stories about yourself that you are, you know, aligning with, as well as you know, people who are still aligning to the old programs that have continually let them down, but it's, you know, it's what they know. You'll be living polar opposite existences based upon karmic clearing. So I'm going to say that again. You'll be living polar opposite existences based upon karmic clearing. So this is a karmic clearing activity, right? Like I said before, when you have carried these kind of heavy karmic cycles with other beings, especially where there's been energy harvesting or taking of other divine beings' gifts in order to prosper in the false matrix. And this is something that has been occurring since especially the previous golden age. And then there are things energetically that must be exchanged and given back to you so that the fullness of your the fullness of your biofield is returned back to its divine state. In other words, your biofield is where you hold all of your divine treasures, your resources, your energy field, right? This is what they were harvesting, keeping you in low states so that you would release your treasures without even knowing. And so it's time for you to get those things back. A lot of you were sacrificed through beings who had connections to these orders, societies, corporations, etc., where they might not have been consciously aware of what they were doing, but they were opening your energy field up as a marketplace to these assholes to constantly scavenge you and to take from your divine resources. And now it's time for you to get it back. So the same beings who opened you up, whether they did it consciously or not, are the same ones who must come back into your energy, because it's time for a swap. It's time now that you are supporting the frequency that allows for you to get your things back. It's time for them to come back to you for the energetic swap and shift that is open now, because it's time. It's time, right? So I hope that makes sense. Now, this is important. It's an important message because, again, when this happens, this is where some people end up in the same cycle, because they become discouraged by what's happening. They think that because something is repeating, or something they thought was over, and it is over energetically speaking, they think that because that's happening, it means that there's something that they failed. And the danger of that is falling into a frequency that supports that story of failure, because then that falling into that feeling bad, depressed, all those other things is what lowers your frequency from breaking out of the cycle. So now this is a frequency game, and writing the truth of what you know, and therefore creating it. So in other words, when you know that it's repeating because it's time for it to be pinged out of your reality all the way, then that gives you a different level of confidence and power and assuredness in how you establish your frequency, to make sure that you are more rooted in it, and therefore your true electromagnetic settings can come back online. It is your true electromagnetic settings coming online that is pinging this energy out and taking back everything from it that is rightfully yours, that has been stolen throughout these many incarnations since the previous golden age. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So Mercury going direct and the next full moon are significant. Let's go into the tarot. You'll also know when a cycle is ending with a person or with a group of people if the dynamic has also changed. The relationship dynamic has changed, and there's been a shift in the power dynamic very specifically. So maybe once upon a time you're dealing with a person or people who used to walk all over you, but they don't do that anymore. There's a fear that was always there, but it's shifted direction, meaning that people only try to mess with beings that they feel threatened by. Right, so even those beings who like to pretend like they're better than you, or try to put you down, if they didn't feel you were a threat to them in some way, shape, or form, they wouldn't try to put you down. And so the fact that they think you as a threat, even on an energetic level, shows that there's fear there, that the root of that energy is fear. And so that fear hasn't gone, it's just shifted in accordance with your frequential shift, meaning you're no longer taking that shit. You're no longer buying that story. You are owning your truth and your power. And so that fear frequency that they're still inhabiting, they still have it, but now it has to shift. Either it has to shift by them seeing it and transmuting it and rising, and those who don't, it will shift into a fear of you that almost becomes reverence. It's the same energy. It's just expressing and operating itself differently in response to your shift. Nine of Swords. This is a second decan of Gemini, 10 to 20 degrees. You might want to check where 10 to 20 degrees is in your own chart. Nines are connected to the Hermit energy also, so this is also about something that's happening solo. So for some of you, this being pulled back into a corner might feel very like dark night of the soul kind of remembrance, in the way that it's very similar to how you entered originally into a dark night of the soul, right? And that's because this energy of the other beings that are dealing with something very similar, they are stepping into another dark night of the soul, but you're actually using the wisdom that you've accrued from your dark nights of the soul to recognize how to maneuver yourself out of the cycle, so you're not going back around learning another lesson. I hope that makes sense. So because at the bottom of the deck we have the Star, and this is Aquarius energy. So this is Age of Aquarius. This is the energy of the year. So what I mean by that is the Star card in the tarot is the number 17 card, which breaks down to an 8. So the two major arcana cards that are representing 2024 are the number 8 card, the Strength card, which is a card of Leo, and it deals more with the wounded aspects of Leo energy, and the Aquarius card, the Star, which is number 17 and breaks down to the number 8, which is interesting because Aquarius and Leo are, of course, sister signs. And the previous golden age was the age of Leo, and we're stepping into this new golden age, which is the age of Aquarius. Okay, and I wrote a lot about this in the 2024 Tarotstrology Ascension report. That is the report that is still on my Ko-Fi. The link will be below, and it's free. Okay, so in other words, when you can check out and put $0, it's pay as you want, which means it's completely free if you want it to be, and if you feel like you would like to donate for the exchange, you can, but you don't have to. So it's still there. Okay, so I'll put the link below because I broke down all of these energies. It's a 33-page report. I broke it down in January, and what it meant, because this Strength card of Leo is, again, it's connecting us to the Inception stories, more importantly, the Inception wound that allowed for the energies that entered into the previous golden age that brought it down. It was through our own wounding. It was through our own wounded egos and choosing to go in that direction and move away from our sovereignty and our authority and sense of personal power. There was a shift during the time of Atlantis for many reasons, but either way, that crack into our age, into our world, into our earth, that allowed for the false matrix to have its seed point, it came through us, right? So this age is about dealing with this age. This year, 2024, that number 8 energy is about overcoming where we let ourselves and one another down by opening, by dropping our defenses, dropping our energetic defenses to the point where the false matrix could be born. It's about dealing with those energies, those beings. It's also dealing with the forgiving of self, and it's dealing with the rising back into our power and our truth. And the Star card is a card of Aquarius, and it deals with everything being lined up cosmologically. Everything being back in true order. This age of Aquarius and living in our authenticity and living in our truth, that is what supports things being in divine order. Okay, and divine order is on this earth plane at least, and in most places, but let's talk about just the earth. Divine order supports us all being where we're supposed to be frequentially, and there's no trespassing into places where we don't hold the frequency to be, energetically speaking. Okay, so this is deeper than physical, this is also mental. In other words, there are many of us who have been entertaining thoughts, mental energies that are so far removed from who we are truthfully. And when you are living in divine order and divine alignment, those foreign thoughts and mental energies that want to come in and program you against yourself don't stand a chance, because those thoughts, those thought forms are entering into a territory where they don't frequentially align. They cannot stay, they're not welcome, and you as a being in your mental field and energy don't hold the program or the frequency anymore that supports that fuckery. And this is why at every level now, when beings come to you with the same old bullshit that before it may have, caused you to pull the wool over your own eyes, it doesn't work anymore, because energetically, as you root yourself deeper into your power and your home frequency, everything that is against that or doesn't belong in your energy, whether it is spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or physically and materially, everything that doesn't belong in your energy, it cannot come and not reveal that it is at odds with you. I hope that makes sense. So when I say at odds with you, it's not always like contentious, but it's still there. It's still not right. It doesn't feel comfortable. Something or someone has to shift, or both beings need to shift in order to bring a level of stability, because there's a frequential misalignment. And how this may have played out with you once upon a time is you would then lower yourself, lower your frequency, right? So for example, in a situation where somebody like to covertly make you feel bad about yourself and question and doubt yourself, but make it seem as if it was coming from a place of concern. That's the thing that many people like to do. They want to pull you out of feeling powerful, but they want to come from a place of concern, right? To make you feel as if you should question your own judgment, right? So once upon a time, that may have worked on you. It may have caused you to question, yourself. It may have blown your confidence, and you may have lowered yourself to support that being's opinion of you. So in other words, if they were making you feel as if you didn't have the talent or the resources or the strength or the intellect to achieve something, and they would say something to you like, oh, but are you sure that might be a little bit hard for you, or maybe I can get some help for you or someone else to help you. And really what they're saying is, I don't think you have what it takes to do what it is that you're telling me you're about to do. And then instead of standing in your energy and being like, no, if I believe I can do it, then I can do it, that's what I'm going to do, you would lower yourself and be like, and make yourself seem more like you were inadequate. You buy the story of inadequacy that they just dumped on you, and you probably didn't enter into the conversation feeling inadequate, but you sure as hell will walk away feeling that way, and it's because you've accepted their story of inadequacy, and you've decided to wear it as a banner and to walk away rooted in that energy as opposed to your own. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. But now that energy can't even come near you without exposing itself for what it is, no matter how beautifully wrapped the words and the seeming intentions are. The true energy behind it, the true energetic exchange that wants to play out by diminishing you, is made so obvious to you because you're rooted more in your truth. You're rooted more in true divine order, and you're rooted in it and you're holding it. And the more you hold it, the more these energies that are trying to take you out, whether covertly, consciously, unconsciously, it doesn't matter, they cannot hide. They cannot hide their true intention. energy never lies, but the Matrix was really good at getting us to play roles that weren't in alignment. And for as long as we were fooling ourselves, it was easy to fool other beings who were also fooling themselves. But the minute you start to root yourself into your authentic power and truth, then beings who are trying to play games with you, because they really ultimately are playing games with themselves, they can't fool you. And so basically all they're doing is engaging in deeper self-deception, but they can't drag you back into that deception with them anymore. So they're, in other words, now they're playing the game alone. And that's also what's facilitating the pushing out of these energies that don't want to, or don't know how to, or have chosen for their own soul's purposes not to rise back into their power. Okay, so we also have what came out was the Page of Pentacles. This is the beginning of the materialization of a cycle. But it's the materialization. When you're dealing with the Page energy, it's very similar to Ace energy, right? So the Ace is the brand new spark, beginning of a cycle. The Page is where you have lived through the Ace to 10 energy of a cycle. You've lived through the Ace to 10 of Pentacles of a cycle. And the Page is where you come to revisit how you want to either continue moving forward and open a new cycle based upon the wisdom you've accrued from the previous one, or whether you want to go back around the same cycle and also utilize the power of the wisdom that you've also accrued, which sometimes, you know, we need to do that too. So this Page of Pentacles is showing there's some kind of either re-entering into a cycle or leaving a cycle, but all of it will be based upon the wisdom, the gold you've accrued, having already lived through it. So either way, if you're choosing to go back around, you're not choosing to do something to get stuck. You're choosing to do something because for some of you, there's a karmic clearing and an exchange that's going on where you need to engage with an energy in your empowered state to get back what you lost that originally disempowered you. That's what I have. Let's go into the wisdom of the oracle. Also, not for nothing, the Nine of Swords here. This is Gemini energy, right? So Gemini is the first sign of the zodiac that is ruled by Mercury, which means that there are very specific messages that are coming through at this time for whoever this is, right? So when you've gone through a dark night of the soul and an energy returns that once upon a time would have put you into the dark night of the soul, based upon your ability to connect to who you are, your divine truth, the wisdom and the messages you receive from spirit, even if you repeat an energy that once upon a time put you into a dark night of the soul, it doesn't have the power to do that anymore, because you have risen into such a high state of alchemy that you realize that there's a reason. Okay, so there's a reason for whatever it is you're going through, and you need to connect with the messages that Spirit is showing you based upon a previous season that felt very similar, and your ability to connect with the real reason as to why it's happening and not fall into the old story or think that you're going back around is what is ultimately going to break you out once and for all. Yep. Look at this. Exchanging gifts. That's what came out. This is a karmic exchange. It's a karmic clearing that necessitates some kind of exchange that brings you back into a similar energy. And we have blessed. Blessed. Blessed and exchanging gifts. And what do we have at the bottom? new life. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Where's my book? Because I want to read exactly what it said again. When the energy shifts, you will both be catapulted into different worlds. You'll be living polar opposite existences that are based upon karmic clearing. Okay, because what they said to me is they think you're backed in the they think you're backed in the same corner with them, or as they are, but there's an exchange that's taking place. You're in the same energy because there's an exchange that is taking place right now, and it's to do with the karmic clearance that is necessary to push you out of this era of conflict that you've had with this energy, with this theme, with this group, with these beings. You know, it's happening for us on very individual levels, but it's because it's a mirroring of the collective story. It all looks right now like many of us are in the same boat, but frequentially speaking, we're actually not. You know, even though our circumstances might look the same, and what is breaking us out of even the material things appearing the same, what's breaking us out of that is our ability to grab a hold of the true story instead of feeding ourselves the story of the programming of the false matrix that wants to pull us into deeper bouts of despair. That makes sense. I'm just looking to the side and I'm seeing this. I'm going to share it with you. Connect with rocks and minerals, ancient wisdom and codes, grounding. So it's really important right now to connect with your body and to connect with the earth, because what is occurring, especially through Taurus season, is you are getting, a lot of us are getting our higher levels of our gifts and our resources back. So this exchange energy that some of you might be dealing with another person or another group as a karmic cycle ends is actually happening on a grander scale collectively. In other words, what the false matrix and its programs and its cronies stole from divine beings by way of all of this fuckery, there's a lot of that's now being returned into the rightful possession or the rightful ownership of who that stuff belongs to, including the access, the portals, all of these things that belong to the true guardians of the earth, and that they've been, ransacking us for access to that. Those things are coming back. The more we root ourselves in our power and our home frequency, the more frequentially nothing that belongs to us can be held by other beings. I don't care who they think they are. It can't. And that's how we lost it to begin with. We lost sight of self. We lost sight of our own home frequency, and we lost sight of that in one another. And that's where we opened the energetic doorway that allowed for the false matrix to begin its seeding. Okay, so now we're locating that seed, we're plucking it out, and we're closing down the walls again. So these stories that are happening on an individual level are a reflection of the collective truth that is also occurring. There's a grand karmic exchange and karmic clearance where everything, here we go again, it's all connecting, everything is being kicked out of where it doesn't belong and restored to its rightful place. So divine order is coming back online. Yes. So yeah, really important to root yourself in your body right now and to connect with the earth energies, connect with the element of earth and water as it pertains elementally, like objectively speaking, but also as it pertains to your emotional and your physical body right now. A lot of purging happening in the emotional and physical fields to make you ready to not only stand in your home frequency, but now to produce the fruits that are further proof of who you are cosmologically on the earth. Okay, so who you truly are cosmologically, you as a high frequency being, have not inhabited the earth in the fullness of that truth since the previous golden age, and it's time for you to fully embody that energy and that frequency back onto the earth planes. And as such, the tuning of your emotional body, the tuning of your physical body to no longer support imposter energies, that's where the focus is. And this is why my guides have shifted me in the way that I am connecting with the collective, and they told me to start, this small group session, the road back to wholeness, because it's so important that we reinstate that relationship with our physical bodies to the point where we're no longer at war with our physical bodies, but we're no longer supporting the external programs, energies, parasitic agendas that were there to make us sick and to keep us stuck in death and disease and degeneration, when really we have all of the wisdom, we have all of the resources to keep ourselves thriving and vibrant and fully, constantly in a state of regeneration when we reaccess the manual for how to properly live in accordance with the vessel we've chosen to embody this lifetime. And so we are reconnecting with that. We are, especially through Taurus season, we are reconnecting with what it takes for us to be in proper alignment internally, and how that aligns with how we consciously create on the earth planes through the choice to utilize our energy in conscious ways to produce now things that we actually want, that harmonize us more, that harmonize the earth more. Okay? So yes, that's what I have for you. I hope that this reading, downloads, were helpful and insightful. What else? If you're interested in signing up for next week's small group session, The Road Back to Wholeness, or next weekend's Tarotstrology group Q&A, where the focus will be Mars, and I will put that information in the description box below. The information for the egg cleansing manual and the Tarotstrology Ascension report for 2024. Those links are also in the description box below, and I'll pin them in the comments too. Yes, if you'd like to join me over on Substack, you can do so also. The link will be in the description box and comment section below. I will be back on my other channel, Solarah Rises, in the next couple of days to post the full moon in Scorpio Tarotstrology Ascension report, so stay tuned for that. I also will be doing another collaboration with Dini Peachel of the Starfire Codes, and I think that will be coming out probably Monday or Tuesday, where we both write on the energies of the moon cycle, and then combine our work together. So you can check that out on Substack also, and I will likely also put a link on the community board for that. What else? That's it. Thank you for your donations again. For those of you who would like to donate, you can do so through my Ko-Fi or my PayPal. And yes, for all other information on how to book with me, if you're interested in a one-to-one and not a group session or a personal reading, you can do so through my website, solarah.info. And again, all this information is in the description box and the comment section below. So I will see you guys again soon. If I don't see you before the full moon over here, I wish you a beautiful full moon in Scorpio or full moon in Libra, depending on how, what astrology you swing towards more, or even just the true placement of the planets in the sky. Yeah, I'm sending you guys so much love. I'll see you again. Take care.